Top of the morning to you. It is Dr. Murphy with Murphy's Medical Associates. Today is St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, 2021. 2021. Let me tell you what I would normally be doing on this wonderful St. Patrick's Day. I would be taking my lovely dancing daughters to a senior center where we can see all the absolutely wonderful, wonderful things going on with dancing and educating the seniors. It is an awesome time, and I would do it every year, but not this year. This year, it's Murphy's Medical Minute, where we're going to talk about the kids and vaccines. All right, guys, let's talk a little bit about this second part here, right? I've got my corned beef and cabbage ready. I'm getting ready to go for the St. Patrick's Day, and I'm hoping that the luck of the Irish extends to you. I hope the luck of the Irish extends to you and your children. Sláinte, as we would say, to your health. Today, March 17th, 2021, I'm here to tell you that the vaccines are coming. The vaccines are coming. We currently know that there are millions upon millions of adults being given vaccines on a daily basis, and they're doing just fine. That being said, AstraZeneca pauses to reflect on the new venous thromboembolisms, the cavernous sinus thromboembolisms that have happened with their vaccine. Are these related to the vaccine? We don't know. We don't know. But can you imagine if it was a kid? Imagine if we had a child with one of these thromboses. That is why the vaccines are going to be delayed for kids. First, who? Our children. Well, it turns out that anywhere between 40 and 60% of parents do not want to vaccinate their kids. Why? Why do parents not want to vaccinate their children? I think I talked about this yesterday. We perpetrated this big lie. We pushed this big lie because our data was garbage. Our data was garbage. The data that we used to make decisions in the beginning of the year, last year, in through the middle of the year last year, into the fall of the year last year when we opened up schools, was simple. The big lie was that kids don't get COVID-19. So why do they need a vaccine? Why do they need a vaccine? Lie number two of the big lie is kids can't spread COVID-19. So why do they need a vaccine? Why do they need a vaccine? Lie number three of this was that kids recover easily from COVID-19. So why do we need a vaccine? I don't know. Let me get on my phone here and say, why do we need a vaccine for COVID-19 in kids? If you believe lie 1, 2, and 3, we're good. Kids are good. The kids are going to be all right. Lie number 4 says, let's open these schools. Right? I think I was pretty crystal clear on both sides of the aisle. They were relying on data that was wildly inaccurate because it failed to recognize observer bias. It failed to recognize selection bias, and that's because all of our cognitive biases have been at play for the last 12 months. At play for the last 12 months. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do? In fact, we find that many parents are very hesitant to give their kids the COVID-19 vaccine. There are several studies that indicate that a lot of parents are going to say, thanks, but I'm going to pass. I don't think that's going to fly at schools. And here we have now an ethical dilemma, a truly ethical dilemma going on. and Irish need not apply. What I think we're going to find is that schools are going to demand vaccination, yet the FDA has not fully approved the vaccines. Further, the vaccines have not been studied properly. Many parents don't trust the emergency use authorization process. Many manufacturers aren't anywhere near ready to produce the vaccines for the kids. And this is a big problem when we know that herd immunity is going to need to be 70% or so, roughly. And we also need to remember that herd immunity is like real estate. Location, location, location. Real estate is local markets. Herd immunity is local markets. But one thing's for sure, we cannot assume that we're going to get out of this pandemic without fully robust immunization strategies for our kids. We have to have robust immunization strategies for our kids. Okay, when? What? Where? Who, what, when, where, and why? Well, what? We have a lot of vaccine candidates eligible. Unfortunately, if you listen to the CEOs of these vaccine companies, they like to puff up their data. They like to make promises that they can't keep. What do we see here, right? What do we see here? Up there, over there? We see J&J saying, oh, we're going to test kids very soon. What a great set of words, very soon. In October of 2020, J&J said they were going to test kids. J&J still is in active discussion to test infants. Novavax is looking to test children. The only thing we know for sure right now is the mRNA vaccines. These are the brand new vaccines that have not been tested for years upon time. They are brand new. That being said, they've been tested in millions of Americans now. And the people who first received the study vaccines in May are fast approaching 1 year. That's right, 1 year worth of observational data on them to make sure they don't lose an arm or a leg or that they go blind. And what we're seeing is promising. What we're seeing is promising. We're not seeing a lot of autoimmunity out there. That being said, we're not at a year yet. We're not at a year yet. So we know that Pfizer completed their 12 to 15-year-old enrollment this month. We know that Moderna has been enrolling and actively involved in research since December of this year with children 12 to 15. We also know that they are now actively enrolling kids under 12. Guess what? We have a hard time enrolling children. We have a hard time enrolling children. The barriers to studying children are real. And the biggest barrier is hesitancy from parents. And it certainly doesn't help that the FDA has not fully approved the vaccines that are used for emergency use authorization right now. So we've done some studies on vaccine hesitancy for COVID-19, similar to vaccine hesitancy in a lot of other diseases. And no, we're not talking about the false thimerosal autism data. We're actively looking at real data about the process. In the United Kingdom, they've done a very good study on this, and what did they find? They believe that parents have real hesitancy for their children. 68% believe that the process was rushed. No, duh. You think the process was rushed? That's because it was. Operation Warp Speed indicates that we're going to go warp speed. But traveling through hyperspace is not like dust and crops, boy. Just because we rushed the process does not mean that safety was compromised. And we failed to elocute on that. We failed to explain that. In addition, 62% believe there are safety concerns. And when we see the AstraZeneca data with the new findings of the thrombosis that need to be evaluated, you can see why parents would have concerns. They don't want to give their kid a thrombosis, especially if you believe the big lie. That's right. Kids can't get COVID-19. So why do they need a vaccine? Why would we put them at risk, at safety risk, if they're going to recover just fine from COVID-19? In addition, almost 20%, 1 in 5 people in the UK believe the big lie, at least when it comes to vaccination. And I think that more parents believe the big lie than we recognize. And so there's a lot of deprogramming that has to go on. And I think the first step of that is politicians saying, look, we messed up. We were wrong. We relied on data that is faulty. We are fallible. It's a problem that happens in medicine too. There's a problem that happens in medicine too. We don't like to admit fault because, God forbid, the public believe that we're human beings. But I think politicians would go a long way here saying, the big lie was a lie. We were wrong. The data's wrong. Children are not magical unicorns that are immune to a novel coronavirus that's never been seen before in the history of mankind, ripping through Brazil now as we speak. No. Kids get COVID. Kids get COVID. So when we have to study these vaccines and their effect, what we have to do is aggregate about 3,000-ish kids. And we're having trouble enrolling in the studies. We're having trouble enrolling. In addition to that, there are some shortcomings that are going to come from these studies, which is exactly why we find vaccine hesitancy. That's why we find vaccine hesitancy. A study was also done in Vanderbilt, which found that only half of Tennessean parents would vaccinate their kids. Why? The big lie. Kids don't get COVID-19. Kids recover from COVID-19 and they can't spread it. So why do they need to be vaccinated? And this is going to go head to head with schools demanding vaccinations. It's going to be real tough. I can tell you at Murphy Medical Associates, we didn't force our employees to get vaccinated. Why? Because the FDA has not fully authorized the vaccines. And if I force my employees to get vaccinated and they have an adverse effect, who's on the line? Who's on the line? Barriers to vaccinating kids is real. It's real. Hesitancy from parents is real. We know that vaccine hesitancy can be defeated. You know by who? Not by you, Dr. Fauci. Not by Governor Cuomo. Not by Governor Lamont. But by primary care physicians. And states, in an effort to mass distribute vaccinations, have cut out primary care physicians. The only way to combat vaccine hesitancy, in my humble opinion, and I've seen it over and over again, is to get primary care involved in the vaccination process. We have to distribute vaccines to primary care physicians, or we are not going to get herd immunity from vaccination. My 2 cents. What the heck do I know? I've only been doing this for a year, and I've only been a primary care physician for over a decade. What do I know? What do I know? I'm just dumb Irish, I guess. I don't know how else you want to put it. All right. Why? I will say again, vaccine hesitancy is a direct result of the big lie. Parents don't trust the CDC. A recent study found only 38% of parents trust the information coming out of the Centers of Disease Control, for disease control. And they don't trust the FDA. They don't trust the FDA. Why? Because, well, let's face it. Lockdowns made a lot of people unemployed. Lockdowns caused a lot of people to lose their homes. Lockdowns, to prevent spread, resulted in economic disaster. So they didn't inspire confidence. So when you're a parent and you have to go to food banks to feed your children because you lost your job because of a governmental decision, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to say lockdowns were the wrong decision. You're not going to get me to say that. No way. I think they were very helpful. I think they were. We'll see where we go in time, but I think that we would have had far more death if we didn't lock down. Time will tell. We'll see that. But don't believe that you made parents confident by locking down and causing them to lose their jobs. In addition, we're seeing children suffer from lockdowns and return to school, out of school, return to school, out of school. There's mental health issues with children. There's weight gain that's happening with children. And parents believe this is due to governmental action. So not a lot of confidence in government right now. There's a politicization of the process, a politicization of the process. Politicians are getting far too involved. Politicians are speaking on behalf of science, and that's a very dangerous thing to do. We need scientists who can speak on behalf of science. We need primary care physicians back involved in the process. One thing we do know is that interstate attitudes vary. Again, vaccination is a local phenomenon. Vaccination hesitancy is a local phenomenon. Lastly, we have our parents not trusting the approval process. They think it's a black box of approvals. How do you inspire confidence with approvals? Especially when you have issues like the AstraZeneca issues. You have to be transparent. You have to say, this is why we're stopping. This is the background rate. This is what we're going to expect. AstraZeneca has already had some black eyes, given the fact that it doesn't even prevent the South African variant, which is now all over Europe. It's now all over Europe. So they are halting and investigating. This is a good thing. Halting vaccination distribution and investigating. That's the proper process. We have to recognize the limitations of our politicians here. Politicians are not going to influence vaccine hesitancy. Done. Especially in children. They're not going to influence vaccine hesitancy in children. It's just not going to happen. Primary care physicians, pediatricians are going to influence. We have reams of data that say that the local primary care physician, the local pediatrician can influence vaccination rates. Yet we've cut them out of the picture in many states. It's foolhardy. When we have articles like this coming out of the Atlantic, which state plainly, politicians and pandemic experts relied on data and models that were garbage. So garbage in, garbage out. We have to be better with our data. We have to be better with transparency, and we have to be honest with the limitations. Why else are we not going to see a huge amount of vaccination in children right away? YouTube! Woo! YouTube, right? So YouTube had to delete 30,000 misinformation videos, which I'm sure were a ton of clickbait, put simply going viral, right? That's, again, like press. We have clickbait viral videos that say what? You're going to get infertility because technically you could make an autoimmune antibody to something essential for you to be able to make a placenta and have a baby. That's not been observed. We have YouTube videos about genomic integration, and pretty soon we're going to grow the spikes out of our heads. That's not been observed. We have YouTube videos on anaphylaxis and how people are going to die from getting the mRNA vaccines. We've only seen that in minute amounts. That being said, there are real concerns, and we need to be transparent about them, including the risk of clots that happened with the AstraZeneca vaccine, and that's why they stopped it in many countries while they're investigating. But we have a big problem here. The big problem is that social media is controlling the flow of information, so it's difficult to know who to trust. Political use of information as a weapon here makes it even more dangerous. There's one person that has been very trusted throughout this entire process, throughout decades upon decades. That is the local primary care physician, the pediatrician and the internist, your doctor, your doctor. People select doctors based on the information and the value that they give them. Patients trust their doctors, their primary care physicians. So why wouldn't we expect vaccine hesitancy to skyrocket when you remove the pediatricians, when you remove the family practitioner or the internist from this equation? Big data, big medicine, big corporations, big mistrust. Big mistrust. So who do you trust? How do you trust them? Fear, uncertainty, doubt leads here. Which brings me to the last question that I get from patients all the time. My phone's blowing up with a bunch of texts from patients that want to know, when? When are my kids going to be able to get vaccinated, for those of us who want to vaccinate our children? Which, according to the Tennessean, is about a 50-50 here. 50-50. In the UK data, 68% of people don't trust the process. So 50-50 is an optimistic number, I believe. Well, Dr. Fauci says vaccines for kids as young as first graders, what's that, 7 years old, should be available by September. Guess what? He's wrong. He is wrong. That came out in February. He's wrong. I don't believe that we will have enough data for first graders, 7-year-olds. I don't believe we're going to have that data ready. Right now, the Moderna data under 12 years old just started today. Today, this week, Tuesday, actually, I think the first doses were given to people under 12. That's yesterday. The 12 to 17-year-old data, that trial for Moderna started in December. If you think that May was the Moderna data for adults, the Moderna data for adults was in May, April, May, right? Really May. And we didn't get vaccines until December. So May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. That's 7 months. 7 months from now is November. October, November, right? Don't blame me on the math. So I don't think back to school in September is a realistic data because there are going to be some limitations with these trials. There's going to be some real limitations with these trials. Let me tell you about the limitations. We're not going to expose kids. We're not going to expose kids. We are going to look at immune response rather than exposure. And we are going to infer, otherwise known as garbage in, garbage out, we are going to infer the response based on the kid's immune response. Well, any good immunologist like Akiko Iwasaki or the rest of her team are going to tell you that children's immune response is different than adults' immune response. And are they exactly the same? No. No. So we've now entered another conjecture point for children. Well, you know, they're just little adults. Pediatricians' heads are going to be exploding. Kids are not little adults. Their immune response is different. Their infection rates are different. Doesn't mean they're magical unicorns and therefore can't get COVID. They will. And we have to be able to test them. We have to be able to test them. Are we going to use nasal swabs? Are we going to use anal swabs? How are we going to surveil the children? We're not. We're just going to check their blood, see how their immune response is. We'll call it a day. Wait a second. We have a novel variant in France we think that may escape diagnostic testing using PCR or antigen mods, right now. We have South African variant, which we absolutely know is not covered by the AstraZeneca vaccine. How did we know that? Well, we studied exposure. We also studied the immune response. And guess what? Exposure versus immune response, exposure wins every time. And so we're going to have some limitations with these trials. When for Moderna? Just like I said, maybe summer 2021 will be data for the 12 to 17-year-olds. December, so 7 months. 7 months, July, December, 7 months, July, August, probably for the Moderna, but not for first graders, for 12 to 17-year-olds. Data for the 12 to 15-year-olds from Pfizer, because remember, Pfizer is the only vaccine that you can give to a 16-year-old kid right now. Data for the 12 to 15-year-olds will probably come out, they said mid-year, right? Early, the first press releases were early year, then mid-year. So at best, June, May, June, and realistically, probably at the end of 2021. J&J has been stalled at the gate with enrollment and all sorts of issues. And frankly, I think the J&J vaccine is a great single-dose vaccine. I think it's brilliant, but I don't think they'll be ready until 2022, maybe early 2022. Novavax is still in discussions. I think we're going to see international data from Novavax very soon. And I will wrap up, I'm going to have to, on Friday, cover Novavax. I'm going to cover Novavax. The big bean, the poppy bean, the soy bean, Dr. Bean and his peeps over there have already covered the Novavax data a little bit. I'll add a little bit of curveballs into what Dr. Bean has said. and did what Dr. Bean has said. But the international data for Novavax, probably spring of 2022. I'm hopeful we get Novavax as soon as we can, because it's the 5-leaf clover. It's the 5-leaf clover. It is a 5-leaf clover of spike proteins created magically and beautifully by moth cells. It creates this, some call it a floret. It's St. Patrick's Day, guys. Come on. It's a 5-leaf clover. That's a 5-leaf clover of spike proteins. We're going to see issues with delay at the gate of AstraZeneca and child evaluation because of this clot risk. We probably won't see AstraZeneca vaccine data in kids until late end of 2022. But most importantly, despite what Dr. Fauci says, I don't think the ethics of all of this in children is going to be worked out, because we pushed the big lie. So vaccination in children is going to be a difficult issue because the lies, right? The lies that were given to the public because of what? Because of cognitive biases and inaccurate data. We had to open up schools so kids can't get vaccines. Can't get COVID. Have to open up schools, kids can't get COVID. Have to open up schools, kids don't spread COVID. Have to open up schools, kids do fine if they get COVID. All of these wishes, these hopes, these magical beliefs, not good. And I worry that that's going to happen with the vaccine data and the science here too, simply because we're only going to study about 3,000 kids in each of these vaccines. And we're not going to study exposure. We're only going to study immune response. We're only going to study how the immune system responds, and we're going to hope that that is a broad brush, painted evaluation of kids. I think that's foolish. I think we have to look at the contact in kids. I think we have to be serious about that. I think we have to be very serious. So, where does that leave us all? Again, I'm beating up on the big lie that I talked about before, which is SARS CoV2 infects kids. The lie was, don't worry, baby. You are super safe with this virus. That's the worst lie we could ever tell anyone. The first thing in medicine you learn to do is never say always and never say never. We think you'll be okay. Don't rush, don't worry, don't fret. We think it'll be okay. This is why doctors need to be put in the forefront here with this. And we need to speak plainly. We need to speak plainly. The best plain-speaking doctors that I know are primary care physicians. We've gutted them from the vaccine process. We've taken them out of the front lines, and the result is catastrophic. So now we're going to rush and try and vaccinate everyone that we can in a big rush because we're trying to outrace the variants. Still doesn't keep our kids safe. Still doesn't keep the kids safe. So the best thing we can do for our kids is keep them safe. Keep them out of poorly ventilated activities, get them to play outside, encourage outdoor events. Schools, local governments should be pushing outdoor events. We should demand that schools pay attention to testing. We should make sure that they get proper funding for ventilating their schools. Ventilate their schools, test at the schools. Vaccination of teachers is only the start. It's only the start. But most importantly, don't expect children to be vaccinated fully until the end of 2022. They're not going to be vaccinated until the end of 2022. It's just not going to happen any other way. I don't see it personally coming any other way whatsoever. So, here's Dr. Murphy's tip for the absolute best boiled dinner you can get. The best. I mean, we're talking the best. See that right back there? Let's see. Where are we at? Right there. Right there. That guy. Right there. Right there. You see that? That's cabbage. Cabbage belongs with corned beef. Carrots and potatoes, only if you're going to go build a stone house or a stone wall. Only if you got up at 4 a.m. and you milked your cows and you got ready for your butter and you lifted heavy, heavy weights in the field, carrots and potatoes are for the workers of Ireland. They are not for the diabetics, despite many diabetics eating 7 or 8 types of potatoes. Cabbage. Eat the cabbage. Skip the potatoes. Eat the cabbage, skip the potatoes. I can't begin to emphasize that enough. So my best recipe. You ready? Here it is. Go buy yourself corned beef. Go buy yourself cabbage. Go buy yourself corned beef. Go buy yourself cabbage. Buy yourself some cabbage and some corned beef. Go buy yourself a 6-pack of Guinness. 6-pack of Guinness. Make sure the corned beef has a seasoning in it. Cut your corned beef in half. Cut your corned beef in half. Buy a white onion. Cut your white onion in quarters. Cut your white onion in quarters. Cut your corned beef up. Put it in the Instant Pot. Put it in the Instant Pot. Instant Pot, right? You go buy yourself a pressure cooker, Instant Pot. If you were one of the workers and you've done a hard day's work and you don't have diabetes, put the little blue and the little gold potatoes in there. Put the little blue and the little gold potatoes, just put them right there in your Instant Pot. Put them right in. If you got diabetes, skip the carrot and potatoes. Skip them. You don't need them. Just put that cabbage. Put that cabbage right there. Take it. Wait. No. Don't put it in yet. No, no, no. Don't put the cabbage in that Instant Pot yet, or you'll ruin your cabbage. Don't do it. Cut the corned beef up. Put the corned beef in. If you're not diabetic or not insulin resistant, go ahead, put your potatoes and carrots in, right? But many an Irishman has gone blind from carrots and potatoes. Parsnips too. You can put parsnips in too, but not if you're diabetic, not if you're insulin resistant. Skip those. Put your corned beef in. Put your corned beef in. If you want, you could probably put Brussels sprouts in, but I wouldn't recommend them. Put your corned beef in. Get your corned beef seasoning. The packets always come with a corned beef now. Season your corned beef. Put it in there raw, right? You put your corned beef in, you put your seasoning in. Take your white onion. Throw your white onion in. Chopped into quarters. Put your white onion in. Take the Guinness. Take the Guinness and put 3 cups of Guinness. That's right. 3 cups of Guinness into your Instant Pot. Pour a little. Pour your Guinness in the Instant Pot. 3 cups. 3 cups. Put your lid on your Instant Pot. Set it for 90 minutes. 90 minutes. Let it go and walk away. Maybe you can have one of your Guinness if you want. Remember, St. Patrick, he was English. He was also a slave. That's real. Remember, the 3-leaf clover is the Holy Trinity. And remember this, Ireland is a land of greens and oranges. So even though I'm in the green, there are a whole lot of Orangemen out there. And they're not just in Syracuse. In fact, where I grew up, there was more Irish people than there were anyone else. Everyone was Irish. A lot of them came from Connecticut and went to colonize northeastern Pennsylvania. Many of them were slaughtered as they had to fight with the indigenous people. They moved up to northeastern Pennsylvania with rolling hills, and they made dairy farms where they grew potatoes, where I learned how to grow and hill potatoes, where I learned how to milk a cow or two. Irish, all over northeastern Pennsylvania. Rolling hills, beautiful, just like Ireland. Just like Ireland. Also maybe a little bit like Puerto Rico. Oh, time's up, 90 minutes. Take the pot off, boom, there you go. Now you have yourself some corned beef. Now you have yourself some corned beef, but you don't have your cabbage yet. take your cabbage. Wow, where'd it go? Right there. Take that cabbage right there. Grab the cabbage. Grab the cabbage. Chop it into quarters. Put it on top of the corned beef. Put it on top of the corned beef. Close your Instant Pot. Close your Instant Pot and set it for 4 minutes. 4 minutes. 4-leaf clover, 4 minutes. When your 4 minutes are up, open the Instant Pot. Take your cabbage out. Take your corned beef out. Put your onions out. If you had potatoes and carrots, congratulations, you get yourself some diabetes. You can get your potatoes, parsnips, and carrots. You take them out. You put them out. You pour yourself a pint glass. You put your food on your plate. You give thanks to God. You eat it. And you remember, the Irish were slaves. They were persecuted against. Brothers turned against each other in Northern Ireland, where the Protestant orange and the Catholic green fought each other. They were hanging men and women for the wearing of the green. Remember that today. Countrymen can be enemies and tear each other apart when there's fear, when there's famine, and we have to choose wealth over health. Enjoy your St. Patrick's Day. Stay out of the bar. Don't take your kids to the bar. Enjoy your family. That's what St. Patrick would want you to do. Guys, this is Murphy's Medical Minute. I appreciate you watching. I love you guys. Sláinte, sláinte to your health. Be well, stay well, get some exercise, take care of each other, ventilate, breathe in deep and relax. We're at the end of the 7th inning. This is Dr. Murphy Medical Associates, our team at coronatestct.com. We're here for you to test, treat, isolate, and trace. Stay safe. And remember, skip the potatoes. And you can keep your body well. Remember, we are made to be well. Love you guys. Have a great St. Patrick's Day, this 17th of March, 2021. With